the 6 ways to get started with investing in property with no cash deposit. How do I get onto my next investment property? How do I move forward?
I speak to a lot of people at the moment. It's usually the man will sit there and say, I'm selling my $100,000 boat so we can get started.
They might not have any cash deposit, but they've got that as an option to sell and then use that as their money for their deposit.
It's amazing how quickly 1 or 2 toys can add up to a deposit for your first property.
I've seen friends do this, business partners do this, where the banks have rejected them. But if they go on the loan together, suddenly the bank looks at them in a totally different light. You have to really have the right connections and be an inside investor. And that's something that Positive Property have got the access to. Whereas if you're going straight to a bank or another broker, you won't get these opportunities because they'll just put you in the too hard basket. A lot of people might not even realize how much their property is worth or understand that they do have this opportunity to help their children. It is going to get tougher and tougher each generation. Property prices are just going higher and higher. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How's everyone doing tonight? If you can hear me, type in the chat, say hello. Let me know what state you're zooming in from around Australia, or maybe you're overseas like me. I'm currently in Bali at the moment. You can see my lovely background. And we've got Christoel joining us live tonight. Welcome, Christoel.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here, Christina.
Excellent, and glad to have you on tonight's session. So we've got people zooming in from Adelaide, Queensland, New South Wales, WA, Victoria, boring Sydney. Why is Sydney boring?
Sydney has great food.
Yes, and very expensive real estate. New South Wales. Hello, Mount Gambier.
Woohoo, South Australian.
Ooh. Nice, fantastic. We've got a very exciting session for you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We are talking about the 6 ways to get started with investing in property with no cash deposit. So this is a really good session, not only for first-time investors who might be struggling to get their deposit together, but also maybe you're stuck, maybe you've got 1 or 2 or even 3, and you're struggling to think, how do I get onto my next investment property? How do I move forward? And if the deposit is the one thing holding you back, tonight's session is going to be incredibly valuable. All right, excellent. Let's get into it. So this is a total. We're going to go through and break these down one by one. So number 1 is selling toys or underperforming assets. So there was a scenario, or quite a few, I should say, where we've had members who they are usually young guys who have old cars, old jet skis, old motorbikes in their garage, even, multiple cars that each year all they're doing is collecting dust. And they might not have any cash deposit, but they've got that as an option to sell and then use that as their money for their deposit. So we've had a few of those scenarios. A number of people seem to have boats, Christoel.
Absolutely.
A popular one.
Absolutely, Christina. I speak to a lot of people at the moment. It might be because we're coming into our summer that where I've got a husband and wife or partners in front of me, and it's usually the man will sit there and say, I'm selling my $100,000 boat so we can get started. And look, I'm speaking to people that are renting, that don't have any properties, even people that have just got their owner occupier, and they've made the decision to sell that boat so they can use that as a deposit to move forward, because once we go through everything, they understand that then later on they can actually leverage that money again to then go out and get that toy.
Yeah. So essentially, get your investment property and then get your boat. So you can have both. It's a very smart move because these items, these toys, seem to only go down in value every year. Whereas you've got an investment property that you're flipping that money into, then you've suddenly got a hard asset that's going up in value. Then you can repurchase those things to have fun in the future. But it's a really good way of turning something that you might only use a couple of times a year into an amazing asset that's not only going up, but also giving you cash flow, because not only are you getting the capital growth from the property that you've turned this into, you're also now collecting rent every single week. So huge difference there. So that's number one. Might seem obvious to some people, but you'd be surprised. Some people, it's maybe not so obvious.
It's amazing how quickly 1 or 2 toys can add up to a deposit for your first property.
100%. And let's take a look at number two. So number two, guarantor. So this is where I see a lot of parents giving their children a leg up and a way to get into the property market, because let's face it, it is going to get tougher and tougher each generation. Property prices are just going higher and higher. So this is a really good way to not give a handout, but more of a hand up with getting the next generation into that property market. And what you're essentially doing is you're putting up the equity in your home, and you're getting that as a deposit for your children, so that the bank will accept that as the loan, and then they'll give you the money you need for the rest of the loan. So this is a really good one. If you've got any parents, and it doesn't even have to be rich parents, most people have equity in their properties that they could put up for their children, friends, brothers, sisters. It's a good way to get your foot in the door.
Absolutely. And look, if people are unsure about their equity, because a lot of people haven't had, speaking to so many people that haven't even looked at what their property's worth since they bought it a few years ago or even longer. And it's the first thing we do is actually get the valuations on the properties.
That's a really good point, Christabel, because a lot of people might not even realize how much their property is worth, or understand that they do have this opportunity to help their children with their equity going up as a guarantor. So yeah, step one would be just finding out the value of your property, figuring out how much it's actually worth in today's dollars, get that property appraised, get it valued, figure out your current equity, where you stand with that, and you probably be very surprised that there's a lot more there than you realized.
Absolutely.
Number two, and type in the chat, let me know if you've used any of these to get into the property market to get started for your first property. Number three, JV, joint venture. So this is similar to a guarantor, but it's almost on the flip side. It's where you might have the deposit, but maybe you haven't necessarily got the income. So if someone's got the income that you need, you can partner with them to get your first investment property. And that's a really good way. I've seen friends do this, business partners do this, where the banks have rejected them. The banks have said, no, your income is too low. But if they go on the loan together, suddenly the bank looks at them in a totally different light, because they single, income might be 60 or 70,000, but together that's over 100. Suddenly the bank's like, they tick that box. And yes, you'll suddenly go from not qualifying to qualifying and being able to get into the property market.
Absolutely. And after you've got that first property, once it grows in value, you can actually both leverage the equity and go out on your own and then start your portfolios on your own. But it's a great way of getting started together on the first property, and then we can restructure to go on your own afterwards.
There you go. And we've just had our member, Adam Vella, say, yes, sold the dirt bike. Good on you, Adam. Awesome.
Woohoo, Adam.
Smart move. So I think this is a tricky one, because not a lot of banks will do this anymore, especially on the income side of things. Even the guarantor that we spoke about just earlier is quite difficult. You have to really have the right connections and be an inside investor. And that's something that Positive Property have got the access to. Whereas if you're going straight to a bank or another broker, you won't get these opportunities, because they'll just put you in the too hard basket. But we do have the option for, if your income's not high enough, but you partner with someone who does have the income, to do that JV, or even the guarantor side of things, where someone's got the equity and you've got the income. So it's good to know that if you're an inside investor, you've got those options that you wouldn't necessarily have if you were off doing this on your own.
Absolutely. I love hearing from Tanya here. She said nothing's forever. It's just getting started. I think that goes back to selling the toys, Tanya, does it?
Yeah.
These are coming from our members that have obviously done a bit of that so they can get started into property.
So just a bit of a recap on how the JV works. So combinations include two people to boost the income to the banks. One person might have the deposit, like we mentioned, like equity or cash, and the other person might have the income, or on the flip side of that, someone might have the income but not the deposit. Then you've got the opportunity to do that guarantor option that we spoke about.
And I love what you said there, Christina, about how our mortgage managers, being experienced with property investing and Georgia's systems, they've got access to so many different lenders, and because each lender will look at the individual situation different. So what might work for one won't work for another, but it will work with another lender. And that's really important to be assessed that way. And that is why we have so many people coming in saying, I can't get a loan or I'm maxed out. It's because the structure's not correct and the lender's not correct.
But also they might not have even thought of these options, or they might not even know about these other avenues as options. So just being educated and having the experience and the connections and being an inside investor gives you so much more access to be able to do those situations that aren't a one size fits all. A lot of people just want to do those easy ones, and they won't even look at the ones that are a bit harder or don't fit inside the square. So having those options is really valuable. And like you mentioned, we've been able to help a lot of people who have gone to the banks and been turned down, gone to other brokers and been told, no, you'll never get an investment property. And we've just put their situation and used these ideas and implemented it and helped them get into the property market.
Absolutely. I hear it from people every week that can't reach out to us. Can't get a loan. I've done it this way. And then we reach directly to our mortgage managers and it's a different situation.
Yeah, 100%. Would you say that's probably one of the biggest things holding people back nowadays, Christabel?
Yes, they reach out because they say everybody's said no.
Mm-hmm.
And we love to do a bit of homework first and actually get them some answers so they can move confident as well before they move forward.
Yeah, excellent. Superannuation. So taking a look at super is a good way to get started. So if we're looking at superannuation, if you haven't got cash or any other way to get into the property market, if you've got 200,000 and your super, you can look at setting that up into an SMSF, making sure it's compliant, going through the financial advisor and actually getting an investment property with that. This is another one that a lot of our members do. We had Stacey who actually got her first investment property through superannuation. You know her story better than me, Christina.
Yeah, it's actually such an inspirational story for this couple. They did not have enough for a cash deposit. They also did not have any properties at the time, so there was absolutely no equity. Combined together, they actually had enough super. So they got their first property in super. Once they had enough leverage, they were actually able to use that to get 2 properties in super. How amazing is that? But what that did was brought them some time to be able to continue their savings. So once they had enough for a deposit, they were then able to use that to get a property outside of super. This particular couple's only been with us for about 4.5 years, and they've now got 2 in super, 2 outside of super. But I believe that they are settling on a 5th property altogether, which is just incredible because property and super is a great strategy for long-term wealth creation as well. So no matter what happened, this couple realized that let's just do super, because if we never can get enough to get property outside of super, at least when we're 65, we know we're going to have a beautiful retirement.
And sell that property tax-free.
Absolutely. Long-term wealth creation and tax-free.
100%. So using that as a stepping stone to get into the property market, get your first investment property, but in the background, keep saving, keep figuring out another way to get a property outside of your super. So you're still moving forward and still adding and growing your portfolio actively.
And the other beautiful thing about this particular couple is They're now on a journey of what property should we buy one day where we want to retire, and they get to choose the type of property that they want to live in for their retirement rather than just settling, because they're just making so much money through property investing. They've got 4 to 5 properties now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So superannuation is a very good option. So what if you don't have 200,000 as a minimum in your super? What options do we have? Because I know a lot of people are going, well, 200,000 in my super, that's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of years in the workforce. It's a lot of super contributions. And realistically, a lot of people just don't have that much.
ABN holders, prime example.
Business owners. Oh, that's a big one. Absolutely.
Yes.
Don't ever pay themselves super. That's a common theme.
Absolutely.
So what are our options? Well, we have a solution for you, and it's called 6 in Super. Now, you do need a minimum of 100,000 to get started with this, but this is where you go in and do a JV, essentially, joint venture, with 5 other investors to get a property in your super. In a nutshell, that's how it works. And that is an option for anyone who's stuck and doesn't have any other way of getting into that property market. Guess what? You've now got a way. If you've got 100,000 or more, then you qualify for 6 in Super.
Because you go out on your own eventually, it just takes a couple of years. Once that leverage is built up, then you can go out on your own journey because you've built up so much more money in super a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's right. And you're growing your portfolio, you're still getting into the market, you're still getting that capital growth within your property that you've got in the super, and you're still collecting that rent. So all of those funds are going back into that super fund. Okay, this is probably one of the most common ones, and this is the way a lot of our members get started with equity. So how does equity work? Well, it's an interesting beast because it's not as straightforward as it might initially look. So using this example here, let's say you've got a house valued at 600,000. If you've got 300,000, at surface value, you'd be looking at 300,000 equity. Now, yes, this is correct. However, you can't actually access all of this equity. So what we need to take a look at and go a little bit deeper is actually identify what your usable equity is. So the bank will always keep 20% of what your property is worth. So if you've got that house, that $600,000 house with that equity of 300,000, the bank is essentially keeping 120,000. So you've just got to do the math. You've got 300, take 120. You've actually got 180,000 of usable equity, and you can leverage this. So essentially, there's a pile of money in your living room. You might as well be using it to create wealth today and grow that property portfolio.
It's not doing anything else. It's just sitting there.
Yeah. If you've leveraged it and put it into an investment, at least you're growing your wealth, and you've got another property in the market that's getting capital growth. You're collecting that rent, you're improving your financial position, and you're growing your wealth. Leaving it in the house that it's in because you've got this old school mentality of thinking, oh, I can't use my equity because I want to pay off my property, is never going to get you to financial freedom. It's a mindset shift for a lot of people, because a lot of people are stuck in that thinking of, oh, I just have to put every cent I earn towards the mortgage and pay it off as fast as I can. But when you look at the numbers, that money is not really working that well for you, especially over the first 10 years, because you're not really paying anything off the principal for a long time anyway. Doing this is a way of working smarter, not harder, using that equity, getting it out there, working for you, creating a passive income, another source of income for you, and growing your wealth, keeping up with inflation.
Some people don't even realize that they've got equity or what they can do with it. It's quite amazing. And sometimes, if there's not quite enough, it is about using the right lenders for that valuation. And it's also about sometimes changing the structure of this loan as well.
That's a really good point, because each lender will come back with a different valuation. And I've had a property where I've gotten 5 different banks, and each bank has given me a very different valuation for that property. So it can be a bit like Russian roulette sometimes when you're getting a valuation done for a property. And it's about just being smart and resourceful about the situation and not necessarily accepting the first or even the second value on that property and going, hang on, I might just see what ANZ can do for me. I might just see what Macquarie is going to come back with. And if you put enough out there, you could get an extra 100,000. I've seen it so many times where it's just a matter of going to a different bank or a different lender to do that valuation, and then just, it's almost like magic. That money's appearing out of thin air because they've given you a higher valuation, because they've got more comparable data on the sales in that area, or, they like that area for some reason. It can depend on the day, it can depend on the person. There are so many variables. So it's really good to actually look at your options. And that's what I love about our team is we will work hard to get you the highest valuation possible so that you can leverage your equity and get as many investment properties as you want. And that's the difference. So quick question, house one main loan, take out the equity that creates two loans. Is that equity attached to house one or house two? You need to do the loans in a way, and I'm not a financial advisor, so I can't talk to financial advice, but I'll just tell you the way that I do it. I've got my loans separated because you don't want to cross-collateralize your loans. So you need a broker that understands how to do those separately, how to set it up correctly, how to attach it to an offset account. Really good question. All right, this is Harmy. So Harmy is a business owner who wanted to create an income so that he could work less hours in his business. So he's working long hours, doing the hard yards, and wanted to start creating that passive income for him and his family so he could have a comfortable retirement. So he got into his first property using equity. The profit today from that first property is just under $500,000. So that is an absolute life changer. Property number 2, profit is $431,000. So we got a quick message from Harmy. He's shot a quick video for us. So hopefully it plays. Okay.
Always known that property have always doubled on average in 10 years.
The good news is the property's already gone up 20,000 before we settled.
Yes, we are very excited about that. The more we spoke, it was just like, why am I not doing this? And why aren't more people doing it? So we were looking at our numbers.
Yep.
Once we started to realise how much rent we're going to be making, we worked out that if we followed the program, we could pay off our primary residence in 8 years' time. For us, the program is awesome because it's been such a smooth ride. The greatest thing for us has been the ease of which it happens. Get on board straight away.
Beautiful. That's really nice.
Love it.
Okay, so how do you get started? So this all sounds great, but how do you actually get started? Well, we've got a no obligation, quick 10-minute wealth call with our team. So for those who are not members yet, but have thought about investing in property, maybe you've been following George for a while and you like what he's doing, you like his ideas, you like the idea of creating that passive income, go ahead now, scan that QR code on the screen and our team will reach out to help you. And that's how you can get started. There's 6 options there for you to help you get your first or next investment property and get unstuck. So what we're going to do now is we are going to turn off our Facebook Live and say goodbye. And we're going to stay on with our private members now to have a little chat. Thank you so much and have a good night.